Okay, I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of pre-instruction if you're planning to try one of these stencils on your rattle. They can be tricky because there can be bleeding, and you can pull this off and then your image can be completely blurry. What you have to do is peel it off, but be careful because some of the areas are connected by a very small little line. So when you're peeling this off, just be very gentle and make sure that you don't rip it. Some of these you might have to peel it in 2 pieces and reposition it on. A couple ways to get a clear image is, first of all, making sure that you press this down onto your rattle as tight as it can go in all areas so that there's a good seal. The next best way is to use one of these sponge brushes, and you have to be careful to only use a little bit of paint at a time. Like, you can do multiple layers, but you don't want a lot of paint because it might bleed under the lines. So I just put a little bit of paint down. I'm going to dab it on here, and if necessary, I'll wipe some off. And then you're just going to dab straight up and down. You don't want to do any sideways motions because you may get bleeding under. So I will just tap this lightly, and if I feel like I need more paint, I'm going to get more paint. The other way, if you have a stencil that has more clear edging, you can use a paintbrush. But the key here is that when you take your paint, again, don't take too much. You want to only go one direction. So you don't want your paintbrush to go that way because it's going to go underneath the line and then you might not have a very nice edge. So just always paint inwards like this. And you can do that wherever it's possible for you to paint inwards. When you get to some delicate parts, you just have to make sure you're very lightly pressing. And if it doesn't work out, if you pull this off and it's all blurry, which has happened to me, I've just taken my rattle to the sink with a sponge and some water and soap. I've actually taken the paint off as much as I can, and then I'll just repaint it white and then try again. Another thing to be careful of with the sponge is it's quite wide, and these stencils we're using are small, so you might go over the edge and then you'll have these black marks on your white. But if that happens, like I did this one with the sponge, then what you can do is I took a piece of paper towel, a wet piece of paper towel, or you could use a Q-tip, and I wiped off the extra that I overshot. And then now I can just paint some white here on any of these black spots that I don't like. And one other thing is, if at all possible, let this dry quite a bit before peeling it, because then that also sometimes has bleeding underneath it. I usually just get a blow dryer and blow dry it a little bit. And I'll try and remember to bring my blow dryer so that you guys can use it. Also want to point out that this other rattle, it actually dried very light in color and almost see-through. So I decided to try the stencil without painting it white first, and this is the way it looks. So my advice on painting it white first, you don't necessarily have to do that. It's up to you, depending on what your rattle looks like, because this rattle here dried very dark, and I knew that if I painted the black on, that the highlights here would be very dark, so it wouldn't look as good.